Yeah, I think we can get
Yeah.
started now. I think about it. Sorry, it takes like 10 minutes for people to actually hop into these spaces. So sorry for the people who actually come on time. I guess set your alarm for 12:10. But uh, yeah. Let's do just a quick intro. This is the THORChain Weekly Developer Update, March 18th, 2022. I'm Familiar Cow from Nine Realms.
I'm Chad Barraford, one of the core devs in the project.
And I'm Chad THOReau, member of the community and help out with THORswap education.
Cool. So, Chad, I guess the first thing people are going to want to hear is the bug today, just an explanation of it and what's being done to fix it. It looks like blocks are already being accepted to the chain. So, yeah, what's happening with the bug today?
Yeah, so effectively there was a bug within synthetics that in some edge case scenario, if someone made a certain kind of swap in a certain kind of way, it would cause basically the Thor node software to crash. And if it crashes, then it can't finish determining what's going to be in this block, and so it's not able to produce a block, right? And so all the nodes, at the same exact second more or less, came across this bug in the code. They all crashed simultaneously, and they weren't able to produce more blocks because of it. And so all that really needed to happen was it's literally like a 2 or 3 line change. It's quite simple, and we just put in the code and then release the thing to the nodes pull it in, and then it's able to produce that block just fine. So in the end, it's a very simple and thing, but it had a serious consequence to it in the sense that the chain kind of paused from producing new blocks for a couple hours, a few hours, whatever the hell the number was. But yeah, but at no point were there any funds that potentially at loss, or nobody. I think there was a thing going on Twitter earlier about the team knew about it a week ago and didn't do anything or something like this, which is complete horseshit. And so it ended up just being a bug just popped out of nowhere. And this bug has been in the code probably since about when mainnet, when multi-chain launched, since the very, very, very beginning. And so it's been through all those audits and code reviews by multiple teams, and it's been through all that Thor games thing we did in the other testing that Nine Realms did as well. It got through all of those rounds of testing and verification, and we just ran into it today randomly. Yeah, and so the small bug fixed, patched it, produced more blocks, get on with it. Simple as that.
So right now, trading is still halted, correct? So now that blocks are being produced, then now what happens? So the pending transactions have to be cleared?
Yeah, so basically we're just waiting for Bifrost to kind of catch back up to the tip of their individual chains. And so I'm just I literally have it on my screen right now. I'm just watching the graphs and just waiting for Bifrost to get caught up, which should happen over the next few hours, I'm hoping. And then once it's all caught up, then we can enable trading again and LP actions and all this kind of stuff and carry on.
Maybe it'd be good to kind of highlight, just for people that are newer, what would have kicked in if funds were at risk, just to kind of emphasize how, this doesn't really have anything to do with that. If actual funds were to have been at risk of being lost, then all these other mechanisms would have kicked in. So maybe if you could just give a little overview of that.
Yeah, I mean, if funds were at risk and this bug produced some case or scenario where funds were lost, or there's some sort of accounting of some shape or form, then the network would have been able to detect that immediately, and then or nearly immediately, within I don't know, maybe 30 seconds or so, and then would have paused the network would have paused itself on purpose, autonomously, just to say, oh, there's something going awry. Let's just kick it off now. Wait for humans to get online and to and analyze what's happening and what blah blah blah, what could have happened, and all that kind of stuff. And so before funds are even left the network would have paused itself, stopping from being able to send those funds that were about to leave the network. And so no funds would have been lost if it's in a hypothetical scenario that we're talking about here. We would have had to do a little bit of a software change to A, patch whatever bug that was, and B, maybe cancel that outbound transaction because it's, it's shouldn't be sent out, or whatever case and scenario would have been. But in that case, it would have been fine as well, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. That's obviously great to hear. Like, that those mechanisms are in place. And I also think it's good to emphasize on that is how, even with today's halt or with that hypothetical halt you just described, like these things are happening autonomously, and then being resumed through the nodes all adopting an update. So it's not like you're being woken up in your sleep with like the master key to THORChain or something like that. Like this stuff is happening very autonomously, very like already in such a decentralized manner, which really shows like the maturity of where the network
Yeah,
is.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on this bug or?
Yeah, so I think people probably have the question when trading will be resumed.
Yeah, probably in a couple hours. I'm gonna guess. I don't really actually know. I think we all are just sitting here waiting for Bifrost to get cut up, which it's working on that right now. So whenever that happens, that's when we can do it. Which it shouldn't be that long. I'm gonna guess it, 2 hours.
Awesome.
Right. And if you do have a swap, like, currently pending, something like that, and you're a little worried, all that, just hang tight. Everything's going to get cleared out in that time.
Yeah,
So,
either the swap will go through and it'll give you the trade that you want, or it hit the halted trading thing, and will cause you to get a refund.
right. So no matter, yeah, basically, long story short, don't worry.
Yeah, you don't,
You're going to be good
either
very
either
soon.
way, you're going to get your funds back. Don't worry about that.
Right. Good to clarify. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just impressed by like the response. I basically just like woke up, saw your tweet, and was like, "Oh, seems like everything's already pretty much fixed," which is really, really cool to see. Just like how many teams and people and the code itself is like looking out for situations like this and having such a professional and prompt response to sort things out. So it's really cool to see it in action. Honestly, it like some people might see this as a negative, but honestly, it's like just so it's really like great to see it like all work so seamlessly in a real situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing we've kind of proven as a team is that we're professionals and we know what we're doing, and when something goes awry, we get it fixed, and then we move on, and it's not a big deal.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
One other question is native rune trading enabled right now? Since blocks are being produced, does that mean you could send and receive native rune right now?
Yeah, native room you can transfer that back and forth all day long if you want to.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good point. Wasn't thinking that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the hard fork, because I know that was even discussed earlier in the early hours when this was going down. I saw some messages saying, "Oh, the hard fork might be just pushed while the network is halted, anyways, rather than because it's planned to be halted briefly for the hard fork in a few days." But my understanding is that obviously did not end up happening. So when maybe like a explanation just for people that maybe didn't hear last week, but why the hard fork and when the hard fork?
Yeah, so the hard fork is kind of the interesting thing for us because most Cosmos projects do hard forks all the time, more or less, because that's how they update their software. That's how they make bug fixes and feature improvements and that kind of stuff. But we don't do that on this project. We actually have an entire different mechanism, which is a lot more flexible, and it allows us to be able to move a lot faster and much more efficiently and have a much quicker dev cycle, which is great because it allows us to make bug fixes faster and get out new features quicker than other projects would typically be able to do so. But in this particular case, with this particular change that's being made, it's a change not to our application, the THORChain kind of logic. It's a change to something underneath that, like something more kind of foundational, which is Cosmos itself. And so in order to do that, all the nodes have to upgrade simultaneously for that to operate, function correctly. And so this is our first time we've ever done this before as a project, and we never did that on single chain KSNet, and we never did that on multi chain KSNet until this coming hard fork. So the reason we're doing this because Cosmos is deciding to no longer support the version that we're currently on, which means it's not going to get any patches or updates or anything in the future that could be of significant value. So we want to make sure we're staying current with the rest of the Cosmos space and kind of moving with them rather than, getting further away from them. And so this hard fork was originally planned to be on Monday, 1900 UTC time. And I don't really know if it's going to be the same time still, or if it might be delayed a day. I'm not quite sure at this time, given everything that's happened today. So we're going to wait for everything to get kind of healthy again today and get the trading on and everything to be kind of back and ready again. And then we can then, as a team, discuss we want to keep that time or not. Part of the issue is that the scheduling was based upon a block height. And because we didn't produce blocks for, what was it, 4 hours or what the number was, that means that instead of being 1900, it's going to be 1900 plus 4 because we've just delayed, 4 hours of block production. So we might say we're going to keep the 1900 and say, all right, we're just going to pull back the block time. So we release another update that says all the nodes to pause at a specific block height, planned block height. Or it might just say, okay, we'll just push it back 12 hours, or push it back 24 hours, or some number. We'll figure out. I think the team has to get together and kind of discuss the pros and cons of different approaches, and we'll kind of announce something to the team probably in the next 12 hours or so. I'm assuming.
Cool. And then when that does happen, it should just be probably maybe similar amount of time of downtime, maybe a few hours or 6 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it depends on how smoothly it goes and how many node operators show up on time, so to speak, because every node operator has to be online at the same time, more or less. And so it all depends upon a few different things. If everything goes as smoothly as I would like it to go, it'll probably be 2 to 4 hours or so. If things get a little bit hairy or things don't go so smoothly for some reason or cause, then obviously it can be longer than that.
Do you have any insight on how it's gone with the testing? I believe it was going to happen on testnet first, which I think definitely happened, but then StageNet I think was attempted. I don't know if was that reattempted.
Yeah, so testnet went very smoothly. That was fine, no issues there. And then we had a problem with StageNet just because. And the reason why that ended up being it was a very kind of a hard bug to find, and it took the team like a day or two to find it. But it ended up just being because StageNet is so the whole network right now is on version 81, and version 82 was going to be the hard fork. But StageNet, because it's just made it has its own kind of life path to some degree. It's on version 87 because it needed to make a bunch of different changes just to StageNet alone. And so when we try to release version 82 of this fork, of this hard fork, and StageNet was on 87, the network has these protections in place to say oh, we're not going to run on version 87 and then go down to version 82. Once you go up a version, you never go back down one. And so that little kind of confusing thing caused StageNet to get into a kind of a difficult state, which is only there just because StageNet is StageNet and it kind of has its own, it's more fly-by-night kind of development in some sense because it's a testing ground. It's a sandbox to some degree, and so we won't have that issue at all on KSNet for sure. And so I'm feeling quite confident about it. I'm actually, in terms of the actual upgrade process, I'm quite confident about it. The thing that I'm most concerned about within this hard fork is just node operators either don't show up to do this task because they forgot about it or they just weren't paying attention or something of this nature, and we only need about 2/3 of them to participate for this to work. Or they, something goes wrong and they don't follow instructions well, or something like this. I'm feeling quite confident about the actual process itself being pretty straightforward and solid, and we made that process as simple as possible for node operators, so they don't the less steps they need to take, the less likely that there's a step they do incorrectly.
And it sounds like worst case, assuming at least 2/3 can do it correctly, things would resume, right. And it would just they would just be out of the loop for that period of time. They would obviously probably have I don't know if they get slashed or just miss out on their rewards, but
they would start taking on slashes at that point, most likely because
got it. But everything, sorry,
yeah, because at that point the network has moved on to a new version of it of the Cosmos SDK. And that they have not, and so they're going to be getting to a weird state.
Got it. Yeah, nope, that sounds good. Yeah, I would imagine at least 2/3 should have their stuff together. So that seems unlikely. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
And one thing to clarify is that there's no action any users, LPs, or anyone needs to make besides the node operators. This is just basically a version update for the Cosmos SDK running in the background.
Right.
So there's nothing that anyone needs to do that's LPing, and funds will maintain security this entire time. There's nothing that anyone that's participating in the network needs to do.
Correct.
It's just going to be a little bit of downtime.
Yeah, nothing you need to do other than the node operators. I mean, if you can refrain from swapping while the network is, hard forking, that would be a nice thing to do, I suppose. But there'll be already things underway that the UIs won't allow you to swap and this kind of stuff while that's all transpiring.
And is this currently planned for Monday still? Or is this being pushed back now?
The plan right now is still Monday. It hasn't been any determination to delay it. But I think there's going to be a kind of a meeting later today that the core devs will have to have a discussion about whether we want to delay it or not. And it's up to, we'll come out with our kind of viewpoint later in the day, I think.
Cool. And it sounds like even if that was pushed back, it's, maybe a day or something, nothing dramatically different, because that ties into something that I'm sure everyone listening in is probably very excited about, which is the THOReau launch, which kind of this hard fork is the last thing to sign off on before that. So yeah, any thoughts on I know we don't have an exact date yet, but just from hard fork success to THOReau launch, maybe what is kind of the timeline of what has to go down between that?
Yeah, once the hard fork happens and everything is looking smooth and everything's okay and all that kind of stuff, then launching THOReau should be as simple as just a software update that nodes just pull down. So it'll probably be just a few days before we see the THOReau launched after the hard fork is done. So
it might be fair to estimate late next week.
Yeah,
if everything goes smooth.
Yeah, if everything goes smooth, then yeah, actually, I think that's a reasonable guess. Yeah.
Awesome. Super exciting.
I'm super excited. This is going to be huge. I think this is going to have just lots of trade volumes going to come into this thing. Lots of more add liquidity into the network, and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be really positive for the network for sure.
And things have been just trending in that direction already in terms of volume and how much incentives there are for LPs right now. It's going to be a really great time to start a Luna and UST pool.
Yeah, probably the LP incentives will probably come down a bit once THOReau's launched, because when THOReau launches, there's going to be a bunch of add liquidities, which is going to change that incentive pendulum a little bit. But until that happens, LPs are just going to, looking like they're just cleaning up like crazy here.
Yeah, but now's the perfect time to start it. Now, while APYs are up above, I think the average is above 30% right now. I think I saw 32% the other day.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stable coins are around 80%, and even BNBs at 50-something%, I think. And it's crazy how high they've become. And that's partially because, by the way, just because the room price has been doing so well lately, it's been going up, right? That it requires less room in the network and in the pools to secure the Bitcoin and the Ethereum and all those various assets. And so the incentive pendulum means that because there's less room in the pools, it's trying to push more value towards the pools. Hey, there's a space for liquidity in the pool. Add some more. Here's some more value incentives to do so. So it's largely because the room price has been performing so well that the network kind of has been ripping rune out of the pools because you don't need as much anymore. And then all of a sudden the incentive kind of kicks in and just says, "Ooh, here's massive rewards to you. Come add some more rune to the system."
Yeah, and that ties nicely into the other huge recent launch of Synths, which we're only 9 days into, and seeing crazy utilization. I think it's something like 1/3 of all volume is currently Synths. and that top line volume has increased with that, of course.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's boosting this pool APY by so much. So yeah. Any thoughts on just how synths are going? I mean, I think we're all kind of blown away with the success of it. Like, just congrats to the core team for being so right about this, even if not everyone necessarily understood the implications. Like, wow, I mean, it's what we're seeing so far is tremendous, really.
Yeah. So the story behind synths is kind of a fascinating one, and that is that if you had looked at the pools, the APYs, or the trade volumes and all these things relative before synths was launched, that like the top 4 out of the 5 pools were like BEP2 pools, right? And that's not because like, BEP2 is the most amazing thing in the world, whatever. I mean, even the Ethereum BEP2 and the Bitcoin BEP2 were outperforming their layer 1 counterparts, right? And that's largely because the Binance block time is like 300 milliseconds, like super, super fast block times. And so that has allowed for more arbitrage, more transactions, more all this kind of stuff. Whereas on the Bitcoin, it's like it only has like 10-minute block times, and so the number of transactions that can actually flow through there is quite limited. And so we felt pretty strongly that synthetics will kind of open up a lot of trade volume just naturally, just by having that there, because that gives every asset and every chain near instant block times, which is about 5.6 or 5.9 seconds. So like it was kind of a clear thing from the beginning before we even launched multi-chain KSNet, when synths were already written to the code at that point, that it was going to be very valuable to the community. And we just didn't launch synths at that time just because we didn't want to put too much on the plate on day one. We wanted to kind of be a bit more narrow scoped in how we roll things out. And it just took us this long to get there because we were so focused on, scalability, reliability, all these kinds of things. And so when we enabled synthetics the other day to have a max synth of 5% the asset depth, which is approximately 2.5% the total liquidity of the pools, you're only talking about a few $1 million here. It's like, I think it's like 4 million or some number like this, whatever it is. And so it's really not a lot of money in terms of like dollar value. But yet it's doing $20 million of trade volume a day, which is like, a third or a fourth, whatever the number is, of the trade volume of the network, which is like pretty kind of crazy to think about. And it's only at a 5% cap. So when we, at some point, we'll probably bump that up, I think, and increase that cap to, 10% maybe or something like this. And it'll be interesting to see what happens at that point as well. It's largely been a huge success in terms of proving that since are one an in-demand item, but it also keeps the pools much more closely to their actual market price. I mean, if you look at all the stable coins right now, they are all exactly on to like $1, or some are 0.0003 or something like this, like 4 decimal places out. But it's really doing its job that's designed to do quite effectively. And it's been good, really happy to see that finally kind of come to fruition after months of planning.
Yeah, I think one of the really cool points there was somebody tweeted out, sorry, I don't remember your name, a graph they put together, I believe with Flipside Crypto, kind of like showing the utilization per asset, which was really interesting because, like the Bitcoin synth like volume was way higher than native, which makes sense because with Bitcoin, you're definitely like more likely to want to avoid the slow transaction times and stuff like that. But that was really cool to see, like just how much synths were outweighing the L1 in particular assets. I thought that was like a pretty key point.
Yeah, I've seen Ethereum volume is way up, and I think that's one of the biggest use cases right there. Is just getting out of those layer 1 fees, and we all know how expensive Ethereum transactions are. And I think people that are trying to trade Ethereum on THORChain are pretty happy with the launch of the synths, especially being able to avoid all those fees. It looks like volume is just way up on ETH in the past week.
Yeah, and it should only increase, as Chad was just mentioning. We're only at 5% utilization. Hopefully we see that increase, in a safe manner over time. And then Plus, at some time with these being able to go out via IBC in the future, that's a huge potential use case for synths. I think we'll only see this pattern increase. Plus, like how many people have even had time to set up trading bots and stuff like that? Like we're only 9 days live at the moment. So just really impressed with the synth usage so quickly.
One thing to tweak at there is that the team talked about the idea of using synthetics as an ICS-20 asset, meaning you can beam it over IBC. And it kind of determined that we probably don't want to do that. A different asset for that purpose, which I'll come back to in a second. But the synthetics purpose is really primarily, more than any other reason, is there to arbitrage the pools, to give arbitrage, to empower the arbitrage bots out there to do what they do and earn their income and provide a service for the network itself. But we don't want to go too crazy in try to find alternative purposes for these synths, because we want to keep them, the percentage of them being used for arbitrage bots as focused as possible. Instead, there's actually another thing that we've been talking about as part of THOReau, which will come out soon, I guess, the documentation, which we're now rewriting to in a more formal structure. It's something we call derived assets. And derived assets is similar to, it is it's a type of synthetic asset. And so it just has a different backing or different collateral that maintains its value. And so this derived asset, we can mint, $1 billion of it and be perfectly fine. Like it has no economic risk to it, is not my opinion. And so we can just have people mint, Thor BDC all day and then beam that over IBC to Osmosis to, or some other IBC enabled chain to do some purpose that they want to do. But synthetics will probably stay as a native asset on the network and not go outside of that, just to keep them focused on arbitrage in the pools.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That's the first I had heard of that change, but that actually sounds even better because one concern I had was, with the synth utilization cap, like, can we really get oops, my audio cut out there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you cut off for a second.
Yeah, suddenly I was muted. I was just saying, there could be such a demand for these synthetic assets on IBC that I always have been wondering, like, will the pool depth kind of be able to keep up with that demand? So this actually sounds like an even better solution and achieving the same goal that we've kind of been looking forward to, nonetheless, just in a slightly different mechanism, similar to how like we thought THOReau would be kind of based on synths. But these derived assets sound like they'll be effectively the same thing, just technically like the backing is not exactly the same.
Yeah, we don't want to go hog wild with synthetics too much. We want to keep them focused. And you can see with even just $3 million worth of whatever the hell the number is, 4 million, I can't remember the number, but the $4 million worth of synthetics can do so much good and produce so much yield for the network, as counterintuitive as that might sound. But these kind of derived assets, this THOR.BDC, for example, all of that is burning Rune to acquire that thing. So as we can mint as much as we want of that, and beam it to Osmosis and do whatever we want. And so and all of this Thor BDC is just reducing the supply of Rune along the way, right? Similar to Luna UST does. So whether it be Thor USD, Thor BDC, Thor Eth, or Luna, whatever, all of those things are just driving more and more value to the Rune asset by reducing its circulating supply.
You're getting me really excited with this. Yeah, I love that. Amazing. And then I would imagine that has because way back, with the thought of yield bearing synths and that going IBC, this kind of sounds like it could have some implications there too, because now the derived asset will be the IBC asset, which is also the Thor savings asset. So I imagine there's kind of some really interesting composability that could unfold out of that.
There's going to be some very fascinating composability because in theory, we could actually not only beam out this Thor BDC over IBC, but it also could be done over any EVM chain, right? Because we're multi-chain ourselves. We already integrate with Ethereum, and we can add Avalanche and FTM and other things in this space. And so you can even take it even one step further than that, and say that if you take it from Thor BTC, lock it up into Thor Savings, get a 20% yield on it or whatever the hell the number is, and then get an asset that represents that, then you can beam that thing onto other chains, to IBC, into Ethereum and other EVM chains. And so now you have, not only do you have a synthetic Bitcoin on other chains, but it's a yield-bearing synthetic Bitcoin on other chains. Then you can do even more, degen things. If you're a degen type, it would be pretty empowering.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Yeah, wow, that's going to be huge, massive. You kind of, so on this train of thought, you mentioned the THORFi doc, which got a bit memed by the community. I'm sure people kind of want to know, like, when do we expect this design to be more broadly released? And maybe just to clarify, like, how it was just intended to be reviewed by a small group for now, just to kind of put the finishing touches, but. Yeah,
we wanted a small group to review it first, just to give us some feedback, and then understand what they like about it, what they don't like about it, understand what they found to be confusing to comprehend and things that were easy to comprehend, and to help us to know what are the bits of the kind of phrasing of the doc that would need some kind of smoothing out. Just so that when we release to the larger public, that it doesn't cause confusion day one. I mean, I'm sure it will to some degree, because it is a confusing thing and it is a complex thing. So, but at least do our best to convey it as cleanly and as smoothly as possible. And so that's why we have multiple videos coming out. I've actually made a video myself that we'll probably re-release at some point. Grassroots Crypto has got a video coming out. We're working on a more formalized structure of the paper as well, like an actual white paper of this design. And then we also have this GitLab issue that is more easier to read, shorter, kind of more TLDR, less details and math and this kind of stuff. And then there's also being work done by Orion and some other people to put together some simulators that you can kind of play with the numbers and play with these simulators to kind of get your hands on it and kind of test out what happens if I do this and what happens if I do that. It kind of helps you to kind of deepen your understanding of the system, but also maybe try to put it through some economic stresses and to see if there's some situation you can come up with that causes it to be in some wacky state or something like this. We haven't been able to find any of those quite yet, but guys remain open-minded to it. And everybody that has seen it, with the exception of one individual, has become very bullish and very big on it. And that one individual, I haven't had the time to actually sit down and talk with that individual and kind of walk him through some things. And I'm looking forward to that, which I think is going to happen on Monday or Tuesday. Looking forward to that to help him understand some concepts. But yes, and when's it going to come out? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I'm hoping like a week or two, but I keep on saying that because it doesn't feel like it's that far away. But we're getting there close. I've been excited about this for months, and I haven't really been able to talk about it with the community. And so I'm actually happy for everybody to see it, so we can actually start diving into it, and people can understand the significance of what this does.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that info, Chad. And I'm sure people have a lot of questions about THORFi, so we can open up to questions in a little bit. I see some people have requested already. Just stay requested, or if you have questions and want to come up, just hit the request button and we'll let people up. I just want to talk a little bit more about the bug that happened today, just for people who weren't here at the beginning, that would want to hear from you about about what happens. If you could just if you could just explain it again briefly for people that weren't here at the beginning when we addressed it.
Yeah, so very brief, the TLDRs, there was a edge case happened where somebody did a swap to a synth that caused the network to get into this, the software to basically crash, and all the nodes crashed simultaneously, allowing them to not be able to produce another block. It's a small bug, a couple changes to fix it. The team found the bug, released a patch. It's going out right now. It's already been adopted actually, and now we're just waiting for a Bifrost to get caught up, which should be not too far along. And then once that happens, we can enable trading and everything's back running and healthy again.
Awesome. So funds are safe, and if there are pending swaps, there's no action that you need to take, correct? It'll just go through once it runs through all the pending transactions currently in Bifrost.
Correct.
Awesome. So let me start getting some people up for questions here, because I'm sure a lot of people have questions about everything that's going on. There's just like so much, so much stuff happening all the time in THORChain. Let me add these people up. Okay, I brought up Quinn DC. You can ask a question. Hello.
Hey, yeah, longtime fan of THORChain here. I just had two questions. One, with the ERC20 rune, like what's the best way to kind of like convert that over to THORChain rune? And then the second question that I had is more on sort of like long-term, I guess, like maintenance of THORChain. You guys are adding a lot of chains, so like, how do you guys kind of like keep up with, just like all the upgrades and stuff that's happening on these other chains that you guys are integrating into THORChain in the long run? Thanks.
Sure, I can take the first part. So to upgrade from ERC20 rune to native rune, same as we put out a video with THORswap on how to do it from BEP2 rune, which you could check out that video. It's essentially the same steps for the one-to-one upgrade from ERC20 rune. Only thing is that you just need to pay some ETH gas because you're doing an Ethereum transaction to do that upgrade. But basically just you can just connect your Ethereum wallet with your ERC20 rune and some ETH to THORswap, and it'll basically prompt you to do an upgrade, and you're basically just doing a send in, and then the native rune will come back out. Sometimes I don't know how ERC20 rune trades compared to native. I'm usually looking at the BEP2, but sometimes there's like a bit of an arbitrage there. So you might want to factor in like what makes the most sense to you. If it makes sense to kind of like trade that out and then swap something else in, and then other tax implications that could come up with that. But the one-to-one is the simpler way to go. And yeah, you just get the exact same amount of native rune back out. You could also do that in Thor wallet if you happen to be using that. I don't think XDeFi has it built into their wallet yet, but I think they were working on that for BEP2. But yeah, that's how you do it.
Awesome, thanks. So Thor wallet's like the best wallet to use, or like is there a preference?
It's all personal preference. I mean, Thor Wallet is a mobile-only app, so some people like to use that. I'm kind of partial to THORswap. I mainly use THORswap. I also like help do the education content for THORswap, so I'm a little bit biased in that sense. But they're always kind of on the first with all these new features and whatnot. So. And you can plug in with whatever wallet you're already using with THORswap. There's a huge variety of wallet options. So if you had Trust Wallet, or you had it on a Ledger or MetaMask, or XDeFi, you might not have to move your funds around to be compatible with THORswap. Whereas with Thor Wallet, you'd have to either load in your seed phrase or send it over there. So,
got it. Okay, thanks.
To answer your second question that you asked. Yeah, so you're right, in the sense that each chain that THORChain integrates with has its own kind of entity and its own kind of life and its own product roadmap and all that kind of stuff. Some chains are worse than others, like Bitcoin, doesn't really change very much or very frequently. It's much slower moving in that regard. Whereas something like Terra, is making changes all the time and it's making all these kind of tweaks to its protocol. So I think the intention is that we have, and sometimes always talk about this, where we have what we call chain guardians, and it's just basically or ambassadors, people who are privy to Terra, for example, and they act as an ambassador of some kind, so that if there's some change being proposed on the Terra chain or some changes being happening that could affect THORChain, then let us, let the core devs know over on this side so we can know how to handle it appropriately. Or if there's some sort of event happening, like there was an event a while back where Ethereum kind of split into two, so to speak, with this Geth exploit that was discovered on Ethereum. And so it ended up happening, which is to kind of pause Ethereum for a little while until the kind of dust settles and a proper chain path was kind of determined by that community, and then carry on after that point. But there is kind of like a continuous thing that this community kind of has to keep its fingers on the pulse of every chain that it interfaces with and interacts with, for sure.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Are you guys like thinking about some sort of like ratio of if we have 15 chains, we're gonna at least dedicate X number of devs for each chain before we kind of onboard the next one? Or just trying to get some insight to like how you guys are thinking about it.
I mean, I would see it as we're not trying to have the core devs of THORChain maintain the chain clients for every chain out there. I mean, a lot of these chains today, like for example, Haven, for example, the Haven team is building that chain client, and the Haven team is probably going to maintain that client, into the future. And so we don't really have a dev working on the chain client for Haven per se. We have some. We're here as advisors. We're here as a support to those people if they have any questions or concerns or things they're not really sure about, or they need some custom changes made to THORnode to in that case we need some custom changes made to support a chain that's that unique in terms of how it's structured, a crypto node based chain. But my hope is that a lot of these chain clients will be managed by other people and other teams who are keeping their eye on things and letting us know if there's any potential issues or risk. And if there needs to, we can always just dive into the treasure a little bit and kind of hire individuals to kind of be these chain guardians for each chain and just give them some room to kind of keep their eye on things. But I don't think that'll actually happen like in the long term. Like it'll be THORChain will become such a critical component of like crypto that like everybody in the world will be more or less doing that work, just because it's so fundamental to the industry that everybody will just do it naturally. Wouldn't be something that we have to do, ourselves, like we do have to do now. I think eventually that won't be a problem.
Great. Yeah, that's super helpful. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Quindici is up here. Welcome.
Hey guys, good morning. I just had a question. I think I heard KB and you guys touch on it, but my connection was in and out. I was just curious if you guys know of any centralized exchanges possibly doing upgrades from BEP2 Rune to native Rune, and how the supply of BEP2 and ETH Rune, I guess, mixes with native Rune on THORChain.
Well, I can't really comment on any current centralized exchanges that are looking to integrate with native Rune. I think it's under kind of lock and key for some obvious reasons. But the interactions between the circulating supply is more or less the same as what it was, yesterday in the context of you burn an ERC20 or burn BEP2 to mint a native Rune on the native blockchain.
And
Gotcha.
just to add, it's only one way. So meaning the non-native supplies are only shrinking, and the native is only getting more and more majority out of the total 500 million. So it's kind of a one-way street in that way. The BEP2 and ERC20 will just continue to basically dry up over time and eventually be a phase-out plan entirely. So,
Right. Okay. I guess with that, what poses the question of where centralized exchanges they may have to purchase or burn their BEP2 or ETH Rune in order to keep up with liquidity.
Yeah, if they're long term, if centralized exchanges are going to want to have any trade, if they want to be able to participate and have any trade volume, basically over time they'll kind of they'll have to have native eventually. So. Right. Kind of see it as the only way long term. But but obviously, for us, to participate in THORChain and to use this, like, you don't need the centralized exchange at all. You can always just, get any asset that's compatible and just swap it on THORChain itself, using an interface like THORSwap, XDeFi, Thor Wallet. And, all you need is native Bitcoin or BNB or Litecoin or soon Luna or UST. And then you can just swap using THORChain itself straight to native Rune. So that's kind of the beauty of all this, is you really don't need the centralized exchange. You really don't need the BEP2 or the ERC20 starting point.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, I was just doing a pest analysis, and I was wondering, is the core dev team are you guys geographically and jurisdictionally diversified? Like as we head into like the kill switch, I wouldn't normally ask this, but not all chains are helping skirt international recommendations, right? So
yeah, in terms of the core dev team right now, they are pretty diverse in terms of their geolocations. I'm an American myself. There are people who are Australians, who are French, who live in not Australia, it's Australia, but Switzerland, and probably some more that I'm just not thinking. But I don't think it's much more than two in any particular country.
all right, perfect. And the next question was about the Thor token. I was wondering, is it required for the functionality of the network at all? I know like there's certain benefits to it if you're using THORSwap, but would the same kind of incentive play would the same kind of incentives play out if the end goal is to be the back end of other like dexes and aggregators?
Just to clarify, you're talking about the THORSwap Thor token?
Yeah.
So that's just the token for the THORSwap platform. So it's really kind of separate from core THORChain stuff itself. So you definitely don't need Thor in the broader ecosystem. The core thing for the Thor token would be basically to be able to participate in the upside of usage of THORSwap. So pretty soon, like, Thor stakers will start getting fees from transactions that go through THORSwap. Some of that fee will accrue back to stakers. So it's really like a way to participate in THORSwap itself. And then THORSwap is kind of doing things connected with THORChain, but on top of it as well, like all these aggregator features that are coming out. So really, Thor is kind of a way to, have partial ownership of the adoption of what THORSwap specifically is building. But no, it's not needed to. Well, one, it's not needed to use THORSwap, and it's definitely not needed to use THORChain more broadly. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if the long term play was the infrastructure that's being built, it wouldn't be as lucrative to invest in Thor.
Well, first, not financial advice, of course, but they're kind of different plays. But I mean, the core thing we're talking about here is like Rune is definitely the core asset. Thor would be a way to kind of take a bet on the THORSwap interface's success specifically. And of course, like, the market cap is a lot smaller, and it's like, so you're kind of betting on, you could see it as like a leverage bet on the whole thing at some point if you think THORSwap is going to continue to lead in the ecosystem. But, it could do its own thing entirely. Like, it's definitely not directly correlated to Rune in any real way. I mean, the market might correlate it, but there's no kind of direct correlation. Thor will depend on the usage of THORSwap itself and all of like the aggregator features building out on top of it, which there is like, a lot of synergy there, of course, because the more that the THORSwap aggregators are used, that's sending transaction volume through THORChain as well. So, it kind of, there's definitely like a flywheel of synergy going on there. But yeah, I mean, anything could happen between Rune versus Thor, not directly tied.
If I can just say something for a second, the THORswap team and the THORChain team are completely separate and not developing the same thing. THORChain is the infrastructure that facilitates cross-chain swaps, and THORswap is a completely separate team that uses THORChain to do swaps on their platform. So anyone can develop their own DEX on THORChain, and this is one of those DEXs that was developed by a completely external team that is called THORswap and has their own token called Thor, but is not, directly affiliated with THORChain itself, which is completely neutral infrastructure that anyone can access and use to do swaps.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. One other last thing is like, so even when you see like the liquidity pools and the swap fees on THORswap, what you're seeing is like the core THORChain pools and the slippage fee, the on-chain fees, the rune fee, like that stuff is all core THORChain. THORswap as of right now actually doesn't take any fee at all thus far. But when that does roll out, that additional very small fee is what would be being delivered back to Thor stakers. So right now what you're seeing is basically just like a window to be able to use THORChain, and THORswap is just one of those interfaces. But yeah, absolutely.
Sweet, thanks. That clarifies everything for me.
Cool, thanks for coming up. $60 finance, welcome.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I have just two things, like for the previous speakers. Like one, actually, I hope that Sex is never gonna change from BEP2 to native rune, because I need to feed my family on that with the arbitrage. So I hope they always keep that on. And second, all for the first guy was KP, who asked about the Thor wallet. I just want to mention that the guys are they are great. I mean, there are guys here in Switzerland as well. So shout out to the Swiss Thor developer. But I just wanted to mention that with the Thor wallet, they actually charge you affiliate fees for swapping. So you may keep that in mind if you want to do swaps or trading or something like that. They charge affiliate fees. So I mean, I've traded like a couple of 10,000 runes on them already, and I paid like $200 or $300 worth of affiliate fees. So you gotta take that in mind. The app is great, the wallet is great, but keep that in mind for everybody who's thinking about it. Right. So, and I have just two questions, very small. And first of all, are you able to provide liquidity with synths? And you already mentioned that yield-bearing synths are coming in a couple of weeks. iRune was always a little bit separated from the normal yield-bearing synth. Will iRune come at a later stage, or will it be launched with like all the other yield-bearing synths? Thanks, guys.
So yield-bearing synths is probably not going to happen at all. These are the synths that we have today. Instead, there's going to be a yield-bearing derived asset, which is also a synth. I know, very confusing, but it's just what it is. That's not coming out in a few weeks either. That's going to be probably months away, by the way. I think did I answer your question there, or I missed one?
The first one is, can you LP with synths?
No, you cannot LP with synths. It has to be a layer 1 asset and room.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Marrow is up here, and that's the last of our queue right now. So if other people have questions, now's the time to request.
Hi, everybody. I have a question, and it's kind of a personal question to Chad. I heard some rumors on Twitter that you're planning on leaving the project once the mainnet is up and running, and that you're going to work on something else after. You're not going to complete working with the project. I just want to know, what are your plans, and is there a particular reason why you're planning to do this? If it's true, I don't even know if it's true.
Yes, there is an intention for the core team, the original OG kind of core team to kind of
for Chad Barraford.
Yeah, that would be me, I guess. Yeah, so my intention on a more personal note is, yes, I do plan on stepping back from the project at some point in the future. It probably will not be when mainnet actually happens. It'll be at least 6 months after that, if I had to take a guess. I don't think I'll ever really quite leave the project. Like I think I might just step down from day-to-day activities and that kind of stuff, but still be involved within the community and still be involved advising and maybe doing some like code reviews and that kind of stuff. I might continue to public speak and such as well. I do want to build other things. I have a lot of different ideas I want to build that are also need to be constructed. THORChain was just, one of my first ones, but not necessarily the only one. So there are other hair on fire problems to solve in this space. And I really want to make sure my impact in this place, in this world, is as significant as possible. And so now that this THORChain is, more or less built, we still have THORify to do and lots of other things, of course. But over the time span of the next 6 to 12 months, I think, my involvement will probably start to decrease because I've already kind of given life to this project to some degree. And I want to move on to other things and build other things that I think are very important to exist in the world, to further benefit and add more value to this place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I hope the project is going to be in a very stable place the moment you will be leaving or will be focusing on other things.
I'm not going to step down from the project unless I feel like it's ready to be stepped down from. Of course, I'm not looking to kind of YOLO my way out of it. That's not my mentality at all. It's more about making sure the community is growing in a way that it's able to maintain these things. And I think Nine Realms is specifically like doing a lot of work in this regard. And so, when the project first started, it was just myself and somebody else who was writing all the code and helped to get it to launch and all these things. But now there's more developers who are getting involved and more people who are participating. And so the need for me will naturally decrease over time, which is a good thing. That's what we're all gunning for. I kind of appreciate the aspect of Satoshi leaving from the project. Like in order for it to become fully decentralized, having a central figure is kind of problematic. And so I appreciate that what he did is leaving the project, and I think I want to follow that example and leave this project at some point when it's safe and responsible to do so.
Okay, thank you, man. You kind of gave me another idea of another question that I really want to ask. I'm personally a developer. I'm a backend Java developer. And I'm really trying to make my first step to becoming a blockchain developer. I don't know from where to start, or I don't know exactly what should I do. I just want to know if you have some advice that you can give in general to how I should approach things, or the things that I should start by studying or something. Sorry, it's out of the...
I would, it depends on what kind of developer you want to be. To me, there's only really two areas, or three. So it's either you want to get into the smart contracting space, and that can be either the Solidity space or the Cosmos space, or you want to get into the layer one development, which is what I've been doing, and that's really kind of mostly in the Cosmos world right now. That'll change with Polkadot in the future at some point as well. But I've been writing Golang code for a long time, much longer than I've been a part of this project. And so I'm a fan of the language, and it's if you don't already know Golang, I would recommend picking it up and start building something on the Cosmos space.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Awesome. We have altcoin gems god. Hello. Do you have a question, altcoin gems god? Just hanging out.
Just trying to get people to click on the profile.
All right.
Oh, maybe having just trouble unmuting or something. Oh well.
Pluto.
What up?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Is Chad in here?
Yes, I am.
Both of them.
Sweet. So look, we got 83 observations on a recent Ethereum test transaction that I did. And so that leaves 16 more people who haven't updated yet and haven't re-enabled their Bifrost. So I have one node operator that is communicating to me right now, helping him get sorted out. And I think once we sort him out, we've done all we can to help the node operators who have responded. So I think we should be good to enable trading after he's sorted. How's that sound?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best we can do. The alternative is to not do anything and wait for the remaining, whatever was it 12, 16, or the hell the number was, to come online, which might take 12 or 16 hours, depending upon what time zone they live in. So yeah, I think we could probably just carry on.
Cool. Sounds good.
How's your morning been, Pluto?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Putting out fires?
Nothing we haven't dealt with before, and it's always on Friday too. Or at least last time it was on Friday, I think, in November. No, but I think this has been like probably the smoothest recovery we've had from a network halt yet. I mean, it's only been like 8 hours, so I think props to Chad and everyone who was on and helping early. I mean, Chad, you've been up for I have no idea how long now. I just got up 4 hours ago. So yeah, like props to you guys for finding the issue and patching it quickly. And then we kind of just woke up in the US and picked up the torch and carried it from there. But I think the response is good so far. And yeah, like we're gonna be up and running in a few maybe a few minutes here. Depending on what we should probably talk about it first before we go live, like offline. But yeah, I think the network showed up today and everyone played their role. So appreciate that from everyone.
Yeah, thanks. And if anyone here is listening and doesn't already follow Pluto, he's the developer of the Luna client on THORChain. So thanks for all your efforts there and for the recovery today.
Thank you. I'm gonna drop now, but we'll give an update soon in the Discord.
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the update.
I just sent you a message, by the way, FYI.
Oh, all right, cool.
We have Mike Tyson, UST. Hey, Mike.
Yo, I've been having trouble with the XDeFi wallet. Has anybody else been having trouble connecting to THORSwap via XDeFi? Getting some type of error where it's just an automatic fail to connect.
Your audio got a little funny there, but are you trying to do a swap of some kind? Because I don't know if you caught like the updates we were talking about, but things have been on pause for just a few hours. So if it's related to a swap you're trying to do, just hang tight for within probably, it sounds like, the next couple hours or so.
I literally just saw a THORChain alert on the Telegram alerts channel that says Bitcoin Cash, BNB, Bitcoin, Doge, ETH, and Litecoin trading was resumed. So I don't know if that's 1,000% accurate, but
no, the error was I've been having it for like at least a week since I've been trying to get onto the THORChain ecosystem. It's just it's the Terra wallet, Terra Station wallet connects fine to the app, the web app, but the XDeFi wallet it never connects. I was just trying.
Oh, does it just like immediately kind of say like XDeFi failed to connect or something? I've seen that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One that you can try is if you don't have all the chains enabled in XDeFi that are being attempted to connect to THORSwap, that can cause it to fail. Like, so for example, if you don't have the Binance chain enabled in your XDeFi, but it's checked on THORSwap, then it's going to fail to connect because it doesn't see a wallet there. So go into like chain management in the settings of XDeFi and just turn on every chain. And then that should fix it. And if not, the other thing to try is to go into the DApp permissions in XDeFi and just clear THORSwap, like revoke the permission and then do like a hard refresh and then just try again to connect. But between those two, that should work.
That sounds money. Yeah, I've been looking at Rune since it was at like $4, trying to figure out how to get the fuck on there and start participate in the pooling. But yeah, appreciate it. I'll try once I get home.
If you have more technical support questions, the best place to always ask is on the relevant Discord. So either on the THORswap Discord or the XDeFi Discord. They have support teams that are always available. So you can open a ticket in those Discords and get one-on-one technical support. And I mean, this should be obvious to everyone, but don't answer any DMs from people that are trying to help you. Always make sure you're in a dedicated support channel that's official.
For sure. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
By the way, just a public kind of service announcement is I know somebody who had a good holding of Rune recently and who had some issue and they got, coaxed into clicking on some link and then put their private key into this website and then lost their funds. So this is a public service announcement. Like, there are some fake websites out there that are trying to convince you to, give them your private key, and just don't fucking do it. Okay. You will lose all of your money, and that will be a very sad day for you. And there's nothing that I can do or any dev can do for you to recover your funds. So your private key is private. It's called private for a reason. Keep it to yourself. Never give it to anybody. Don't give it to me. If I ever ask you for it, don't give it to me. Don't give it to Chad THOReau. Don't give it to some website. Nobody. Keep it to yourself. Please do that.
Absolutely. And these also could be impersonating people or services. So you might, always make sure you're talking to like you're in the official THORswap Discord talking with a real support ticket, for example. And even then, if you think you're talking to THORswap support, for example, and they're asking you for your seed phrase, you're not talking to THORswap support. You're talking to some scammer who is impersonating support. So, there's a lot of that going on just in the crypto industry as a whole, not just specific right here. But never for no reason, ever give up your seed phrase. It's 100% a scam.
Yeah, and people do impersonate people on Telegram and stuff. People have used my face and my name and such to convince people that I'm asking them for their money or something like this, which I have never done, nor will I ever do. So please keep your funds safe.
Well, Quinichi is back up.
Hey guys, thanks for the mic again. So I just had a question regarding your thinking and strategy behind vetting new chains on integrating them. I know we have, after Luna, Haven, Monero, and I think it was Dash or some others that were talked about. So yeah, just going forward, once Luna's completed, kind of what the strategy is in terms of bringing on new chains that, because as a token holder, I don't want to see a bunch of just random shit coins on the network. Maybe some people do, but that's just my take. So curious on the thinking behind that is.
To me, it's all about, it's a lot of different things to consider. One, you can think about the economic value of a particular chain. How much value is that in regard, right? Mm-hmm. Two, you can think about the trade volume of that particular chain or asset to see how much value it is potentially in that regard. You can think about the security of that chain in terms of what are the attack vectors, what are the risks that it can pose to the THORChain network. You want to talk about that community. Are they going to care at all the fact that you can, enter and exit through a decentralized exchange? Some communities do, like obviously the Terra community does, and other communities, haven't had as much of a reaction in this regard, even though it doesn't make much sense to me. And then also thinking about, can we partner with the foundation or the team that's behind that chain, or the community influencers that are behind that chain, to kind of garner liquidity, garner support, and get a symbiosis kind of relationship going on there. Those are the things that I kind of think about when I try to measure the value of adding a new chain. And there's also the idea of like, well, we have an EVM chain, we have UTXO chains, we have a couple of Cosmos chains in this sense. And then also, do we have maybe a cheap EVM like FTM or Avalanche or whatever? Do we want to start adding Polkadot and those kinds of things? And It becomes a very, very kind of complicated question that the community has to come together and determine what they want to do.
Gotcha. Thanks. Last question. When mainnet is live, when is the THORChain THORChads community meetup celebration?
When mainnets happen, we have like a celebration launch of mainnet party, whatever. I don't know. It all depends on when mainnet's can actually going to happen, which I don't actually specifically know a date right now. But I'm sure we'll have, at the very minimum, we'll have a Twitter Spaces one, I'm sure.
Sweet.
We might have to merge the $60 rune and the mainnet party, so we'll have to see about that.
Maybe we might have to.
Could come at the same time.
Cool, thank you. We have nice roundtable.
Hey guys, thanks very much. Sorry if there's any background noise. Just a quick one. This might be technical, might not be. When Terra integrates and we have, let's say, a Rune Luna LP, could we just give the LP token a name rather than most places when you LP they just call it kind of Rune Luna? Why can we just give it a name like Runa or Loon? And then can that be traded separately? Potentially, you could even put that LP token as its own token on a Kex or somewhere else. And, you could even play with the 50-50 valuation and people can then arbitrage it. And it just gives more volume to both of them because I want to know how there can be a synergy between Terra and THORChain. Thank you.
Yeah, there was an attempt earlier on in the code to make LP units an actual token on the network that you could then transfer and trade and do other things with, theoretically. That was actually reversed because not everybody who's LPing has a Thor address, right? So some of them just have a Terra address and they're just putting up Luna. Therefore, where the hell will we send those coins to, that ownership of that pool? So that kind of added a little bit too much complexity and a little too much risk in some way because of that. And so we decided not to do that. And also, if you do that, then it becomes a taxable event when you add liquidity to the network, which then kind of complicates the taxation aspects of being an LP on THORChain.
Yeah, thanks. That makes sense now, especially about the attack. But perhaps just for the user interface, call it Runa or Luna or Loon, something just like as on the website. It doesn't have to be a real token. And last question is, when will Haven integrate? Is it next after Terra? Thank you.
Real quick on your last point, I mean, an interface could do that, right? Like not THORChain itself. Like if hypothetically, if THORSwap or XDeFi or something wanted to, like for fun, like display your LP units as Runa or something, like I'm sure that's kind of just like a front end UI thing, even if it's not actually tradable. But yeah, nonetheless, I think we all know like Runa is the real apex asset of all of crypto, and those LP units are gold. The Rune Luna LP units, and then wait till THORFi kicks in, and then those LP units are really going to be just the best thing to have. You were going to ask another question. I think I might have stepped on your other thing you were mentioning.
So I just asked if Haven is the next chain after Terra to be integrated, or is there something else in the middle? Thanks.
Probably Gaia or Atom would be the next one after Terra, most likely. Haven is still in development. It still has quite a ways to go. I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon, to be honest with you. It does require. It's still being worked on the chain client side itself, which I am in constant communication with the Haven team to assist them with that in any way I can. But it also requires a good amount of changes to THORnode as well, which we haven't even started working on that quite yet. It's just been kind of low priority relative to synthetics and Terra, and THORname is coming out after that. IBC is coming out pretty soon after this. Lots of things happening at once, in other words.
Have you guys heard of Luna Huddle on MeowTrader? It's kind of like the LP thing you're talking about, like with LP tokens that are separate.
No, don't know about that.
Oh, it's pretty cool. You should check it out. on MeowTrader. It's open source code too, and it's like you enter 2 LP tokens and it wraps them into one token essentially. So you have like 1 LP token that's containing 2 LPs, if that makes sense. It's pretty cool.
Sweet, thank you. The Taxman is also up.
Hey guys, so just a quick question. I was curious how much collaboration there is with some of the bigger backers of the project, like Delphi Digital and Multicoin Capital. I thought I heard something about how they might have looked at kind of the plans for THORFi, or maybe the interface or something like that. But I was just wondering, like, do those guys are they helping out on like an ongoing basis as far as like bouncing ideas off them, or how do they kind of play into, you know, the THORChain like moving forward and you know, the plans for the future and stuff? Like, do they have a say in what's going on there? And thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we are, as a team, we are in communication with them. There's not a lot of chatter happening back and forth, to be honest, until this whole THORFi thing happened. And so we wanted, before we kind of shopping this idea with the community in a more public fashion, we wanted to kind of shop it privately with them, just to make sure that we, as a team, weren't like missing something, or there was some aspect to the design that has some crack or flaw in it that could be problematic, blah, blah, blah. And so before shopping it publicly, we wanted to show it to them privately and have a couple of kind of, you know, Zoom chats, whatever, just to kind of go over some aspects to it. And they were very resistant in the beginning when they first heard the general idea of it, and they were like, "Oh my God, it sounds like it's going to collapse on itself." But then as they actually looked into it and read it and understood it, they quickly changed their mindset. But yeah, they're great VCs. They're very smart people. They don't come from a mountain on high to like tell us how to do everything, you know, more or less. They're pretty just like, they believe in the product. They bought a bunch of coins, and that's the vast majority of it right there. But they are very smart and brilliant people. And so if we have some questions or some kind of want to double check on our thinking on some things or get some advice or insights, they're always there to help as well. So they're very, very valuable partners in many respects.
Hey guys, a quick question. What do you think about the planned obsolescence, and what does it actually mean?
Yeah, planned obsolescence is the idea that the original kind of OG team starts to phase out of their involvement in the project, and on the rest of the community kind of starts to pick up kind of some of that slack in a sense. That'll probably happen. I'm hoping to happen this year, towards the end of the year, maybe. In my mind, I see it's going to be probably 6 months after mainnet happens, whenever that is. When I feel like that all the major features are out, they've had months to kind of harden and, you know, fix any bugs that are maybe discovered, like the bug we found today, for example. And then, you know, let the community take it over and own it, and not have to worry about, you know, single individuals who are, you know, Jesus-like figures that control all things. We don't want to see that happening. So that's part of the reason we want to have this planned obsolescence.
I'll just add, yeah.
Is it like, oh, sorry. Is it like everybody is leaving the community, or all the developers would be leaving after the planned obsolescence?
Not all the developers, just like, you know, for the core platform, probably just 1 or 2. The rest of them, like people like Pluto, who was up here earlier, and you know, other individuals within 9 Realms, and also the larger community, they'll still be around contributing, doing what they do, and they're just going through this process now to kind of aid in the core team to kind of learn from the core team certain things and aspects, and so to deepen their understanding of the code base and how it functions and works, because it is a very complex code base for sure. And so they're just kind of going through this educational process and also contributing to that, right? Pluto has been adding, you know, Terra and Doge to the network, for example, and Iridanis has been working on some vault nodes or light node things. Orion's been working on monitoring and like data analysis. Ursa has been working on infrastructure and Kubernetes stuff, dashboards, this kind of thing. So it's been really helpful to have them around, and we're looking forward to have more people join in and to contribute more to it. And the reliance that the project has on myself as an individual or other individuals within the kind of the core team is definitely going in the right direction.
I'll just add that this question may have come from the recent Coin Bureau video, which a lot of people saw. And he kind of, in that video, he kind of didn't quite grasp the real meaning of planned obsolescence, I feel. So one thing is check out Donku R's video on YouTube. I went on as well with him, and we kind of like went over some of the things in that video and kind of clarified, planned obsolescence being one of them. But yeah, just to add, really planned obsolescence is a positive thing for THORChain as a whole. I mean, it's a move towards like unstoppable, true decentralization for THORChain. So the idea is just for the few core devs to kind of start to dissociate over time. But that does not mean like THORChain won't be worked on by other devs and teams like Nine Realms, and then all the teams that are working on top of THORChain and around it to be contributing into strengthening it and so on for years or decades to come. So yeah, ultimately it's I see it as a positive thing, and I think maybe renaming planned obsolescence is maybe something to consider, because it does seem to throw some people off.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Yeah, if anyone has ideas for renaming planned obsolescence, shoot them out there.
Yeah, I'm open to new ideas.
Community takeover. I don't know, but yeah, I think because I think the name is like a little scary, and it's not excessively clear what it means. So we can talk about that in the future, though. But yeah, planned obsolescence is a good thing.
On that, like Terra, they have I forget their exact name, but they just refer to it as like their Terraform Labs kill switch. What do they call it? I don't think it's quite kill switch, but in their framing of it, it makes you realize like, oh, that's their way for them to kind of like push the button, blow up the team, and then Terra runs on its own entirely. And that's really what like planned obsolescence is essentially about, the same goal. Maybe it could be named a little bit in a way that makes that more obvious.
I saw that video that you were on, like Ragnarok was suggesting. That's not a bad idea.
What are your?
Oh yeah, he threw out Ragnarok. Yeah.
I was just thinking, there's also like the decentralization switch. It's like a step away from the kill switch, and I think it's a lot more friendly.
Yeah, something like that for sure. Yeah. Decentral, like team decentralization phase out, team kill switch. I don't know. Definitely something to think about.
Definitely don't have kill in there.
Fair.
Operation Kill Odin.
There must be something in Norse mythology where like Odin gets taken down by Thor. Hey, Marty.
Hey guys, good space. Hey, I just want to maybe clarify a little bit about the Terra situation there. The kill switch, which I don't necessarily know if they use that term, but something close to it, was about the SEC or a whole bunch of people deciding that they had jurisdiction and coming after them. And their statement was, we'll just unplug and either burn or distribute all that we have, to the stakers and be done. It was kind of a exogenous, bad or worst case scenario kind of statement, I think, more than this is how we extract ourselves kind of situation. But just one man's opinion there.
We have Pasquale.
Hi guys, hi everybody. Thank you for the microphone. I'm going to apologize in advance for the question I'm going to ask, because it's going to be pretty stupid. I just started learning about THORChain yesterday, and I'm so excited I can't refrain from asking questions. So I would like to know, because I don't seem finding anywhere anything about potential use of smart contracts on the THORChain. So I was wondering if it is in the roadmap, if it's already there and I couldn't find it, or it's something which will never be part of THORChain.
Chad, would you like to answer this?
Sorry, I think I missed that question. Yes,
it's about smart contracts on THORChain. Will it be integrated?
Oh, okay, good question. My answer, this is my own 2 cents, and it's not the definitive answer for the project itself, so keep that in mind, is that the answer is no. And the reason why that is because whenever you get into a position where you have generic computation on a blockchain, you inherently are kind of inflating the blocks, right? I mean, you're putting more pressure into the blocks. And you end up inevitably with the Ethereum situation of where gas is extremely high. Now you can argue that, you know, Solana and Terra and Avalanche and all these other things are like not doing that, but in reality, they actually are doing those things. It's just a different threshold for scalability, right? So I think the goal in my mind is that THORChain should be, its block space should be dedicated towards liquidity pools and just doing one thing and one thing very well, which is basically a series of DeFi protocols. Anything outside that context to do any kind of other generic scripting or purpose, just build it somewhere else. That's perfectly, there's lots of places you can do that on. You don't necessarily need it on a cross-chain platform like THORChain. But that being said, there is an exception. And that is the idea that because THORChain itself is chain agnostic in its design, there's no reason why you couldn't actually run a smart contract on Ethereum or FTM or whatever, but have access to the liquidity of THORChain. And so what that would look like is somebody acquires LP units through adding liquidity to a pool, and they transfer those LP units to a smart contract on Ethereum, and then they go to that smart contract and they say, okay, you know, I want to do this, I want to do that, whatever the hell that smart contract does. And then they can exit later on and with either more or less LP units, depending upon how they perform within that contract, whether they were doing derivatives exchanging or they were doing just like gambling. I mean, who knows? Whatever people want to do, they can do. But that would just effectively mean that the liquidity of THORChain is available on every blockchain out there. Every Cosmosm, every Solidity contract out there can access that if they wanted to. But they're not actually executing, utilizing the block space of THORChain to do so. That's a much more scalable and much more interesting design from my perspective.
Thank you for answering. I appreciate you. I appreciate the idea of keeping it simple and making it work better. I really appreciate it. I also think that this obviously is going to limit a lot of potential that could arrive from third parties, like by using a smart contract or tokens created by smart contract, the same way Ethereum does. But I understand what you're saying. Do it outside and then use THORChain mostly for, let's say, exchanging assets. Well, thank you.
Yeah, but I also would say though, that like if you look at smart contracting and within, especially within the DeFi space, there's only a handful of things that are actually happening, right? There's AMMs, there's lending, there's stable coins, you know, a few things. And some of these AMs are designed differently, some of these lending protocols are designed differently, all these things, and they each have their own value or purpose, or why do you use one over the other and not this one over that one. But in the design of THORChain, I would argue that our AMM design is probably the best. I just put that out there. What we are going to be proposing to the community for a stablecoin design, for lending design, all these things, I would again argue it's probably the best and most innovative design that we've seen in the DeFi space in general. I think that the team we have here is quite intelligent individuals who are, you know, not just you know, coin pumpers in a sense, but rather innovators, people who are actually trying to do things in the space that nobody's ever done before, and completely reshape how we look at DeFi in general. THORChain is never going to be an NFT platform or a gaming platform or any of these other things, and it doesn't have to be. It's not trying to be the one thing that does all the things. It's more trying to stay focused on doing, a handful of things very, very well. And if you look at Apple as a company, you can take your kitchen table at home, put every product that Apple makes on that table. That's not what you can say for Samsung, right? Or Mitsubishi, where they make more products than I could possibly even count in 1,000 different industries. And they're all like mediocre products at best. But every product that Apple makes puts their entire focus and energy into it to innovate and to do something that nobody's really doing in the space, generally speaking, and produce fantastic products that are actually really well designed and put together for that community around that. And I see THORChain to be kind of somewhat similar to that, in that we're not going to be doing 1,000 different things. It's just going to be a handful, a very small amount of things. But the things that we are doing are going to be are going to reshape the industry as a whole, and not just redo something that somebody else already did.
Of course. Thank you. I was never thinking about NFT or something like that. I was more thinking about ETFs or synthetics that could be traded, let's say, by including native assets.
Right. And so when we launch like derived assets like Thor BDC and blah blah blah, and maybe one day we can even do composite assets, meaning assets that are an ETF on DeFi. We might do that as a project, as a community. And when that happens, you'll be able to beam it over IBC to Injective, which is like a derivatives exchange to do derivatives things. So I think part of the only way that blockchain in general can be successful, at least in my view, is that it maintains fragmented, but fragmented in a way that is unified, as silly as that kind of sounds. We don't want to get to a place, Wallace, like the Facebook sense, where Facebook owns like 85% of the fucking social media world, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or otherwise. And we don't want to get to where that place where like a few individuals control it all and can manipulate it all and do all sorts of fucking nonsense. We want to keep it kind of fragmented, keep it decentralized, keep it many different people working on many different projects, but have the ability to move and kind of interact with these things in a universal, smooth, and easy to use way. That's what we need to kind of be striving for as a community, as a larger crypto community.
Thank you for your answer. I'll keep learning about THORChain, and good luck. Thank you, Gabe.
You're welcome.
Cool. Thanks for coming up. Living the dream.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello.
He might not be able to hear us.
Sorry about that. Call was coming in twice in a row. Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Perfect.
You're good to go.
Yeah, you guys may have touched on this, and this information may be readily available, but I was hoping you could shed some light on the THORFi lending side of things, and just having a hard time wrapping my head around the, being able to borrow out and then have it be self-paying back when a lot of the coins are not proof of stake, and just trying to figure out where that yield and where that's coming from exactly. What are you giving up for that self-paying, leverage?
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. One is it's the lending design that the core team is kind of proposing to the general community is that it's not a self-paying loan like you see on not Abracadabra. What's it called? Begins with A. Alchemix. Yeah, excuse me. Yes, Alchemix. That was an idea in the earlier days, something we were looking to do, but I think we found something that was better. And so you can think of it this way: there's a trade-off here. You can either provide a lending platform where the debt is paid off by itself, like an Alchemix style kind of thing, or you can provide a lending system where there's no liquidations. And to me, I would prefer the no liquidations, and I'll tell you why that's more valuable. It's because the biggest problem we have with lending today is that it's super fucking stressful. Because whenever you take out a loan in crypto land, you have two risks at hand, and they both cost you a lot of money. One is the variable rate interest that can kind of fluctuate from day to day, and all of a sudden it can just balloon up to 30, 40% or something like this, and just kind of get completely railed by it, which that's super stressful. And it's an undeterministic thing about the lending environment that you just have to take that risk, kind of roll the dice, which is not, from an investment perspective, you don't really want to roll dice too much, That's the first problem. Second problem is liquidations, where the collateral you provide drops in value relative to the debt, and then all of a sudden, you lose all your collateral. That's also super stressful, and that's also a risk of kind of rolling the dice and we're taking a loan. But this lending design that I think we're proposing to the community is that this one has 0% interest rates that are fixed at 0%. So you don't have to worry about interest rates kind of fluctuating on it because it's always going to stay at zero. And the other thing is that it never gets liquidated. So even if the collateral drops below the debt, your collateral is still fine, the network's still solvent. All these things are still kind of true. Now you have a mechanism to be able to take out a loan in crypto land without having to worry about what may happen in the future. You will always have access to your liquidity, your collateral, always not worry about getting screwed in interest rates. And that's probably the most safest and the most reliable loan that you could possibly have in the crypto space. And nobody's done that yet, including Alchemix. And so I'm more privy to doing something that the space hasn't seen and doing something that the space generally considers to be, mathematically impossible, which is not actually true, by the way. They just lack first principles thinking. And that's why it is the way it is.
Sure. Would we be limited to, what we can borrow off of that collateral, or there would be no limit on that? Like as far, up to the value?
Yeah. So the value is, that's based on what we call the collateralization ratio. So if you were to hypothetically had a 200% collateralization ratio, you put up $200, the network would give you $100 worth of THORUSD, $100 worth of stable. That collateralization ratio increases the more loans are taken out on the network. And so it'll naturally find a kind of equilibrium defined by the free market of what is the correct collateralization ratio for a loan that has these attributes, these specifications. I don't know what that number is going to be. The free market's going to inform me and inform the rest of the community of what is good. Is it 150%? Is it 300%? Is it 10,000%? Like, I have no idea, but we'll all find out together.
Sure. Well, and the third risk, that this solves is what we've seen with Anchor several times, especially in May when the chain's overloaded. And even though you have the ability to pay down the loan and you can't, you get liquidated anyways. And there's no way to really prevent it other than paying down way in advance of any, loads. So kind of eliminates that risk as well.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine got liquidated on Anchor a while back, and it wasn't even an appropriate liquidation. It was just some, I think, bug in the price oracle that caused Anchor to do like a cascading liquidation event. It was just a bug, which I'm sure they've solved and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But like even in that case, they didn't even do anything wrong. It just some bug, and the whole thing got liquidated, and good suck for him.
Sure. Yeah, well, appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool. We have two more speakers up here, and that'll be the last for today. Siamak?
Yes. Hi, guys.
Hello.
So I have feedback, and I do understand that it might be also a little bit too much to ask because the THORswap team is completely different. And I know that what THORChain is, and it's the core technology under the THORswap. But I was noticing the behavior of the user for today, that the trading was halted, and I can see most of the exposure of the people to the THORChain comes from these the interfaces, and I know that the teams are completely separated. But as a feedback and as an observation, I know that the hard fork is coming. And if there is going to be a halting period of time for the network, it would be really nice to kind of as the feedback, have the information as a banner or something up there, so the folks that are coming to THORswap don't get confused that why something is not working or something. Because I do understand how these things work, and I do understand how separate they are, and I know that is not your it's not your kind of job to tell them to do this. But many of these people who are coming to THORswap are the Bitcoiners who just had it in their wallet and they don't interact with the DeFi, so they get a little bit panicked. And as a feedback, it would be nice to have some very important, like, a known kind of like, thing like the hard fork and stuff, like, up there. And I do know that Discord, that the Twitter and all of this exists, but believe it or not, for many of the audience that we are attracting, these are not the main channels of the communication. So it would be nice to have it there. So I just want to, like, to avoid the panic.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Absolutely. And I know that, I know for THORswap at least, and probably for all interfaces, for the hard fork that is planned, that exactly what you described is planned. Meaning, like, if you go to THORswap at that time, there will definitely be notices, if not just completely just blocking you from even using it at that time. I don't know if THORswap got anything up immediately with this sudden unplanned halt, but ideally that would be the case. And also, I just agree generally, just, as far as UIs go in general, and THORswap is coming out with like a full redesign soon too, but ideally you should be able to show up to THORswap, not understand anything about THORChain, and like the interface should kind of be enough to allow you to use it, right? Like it should kind of have education and onboarding kind of built into where it just makes sense and you can just use it. Similar to like, there's a lot of dApps like that might be that way. Like I agree with you fully. Like the average user doesn't need to understand these things. Like the average user isn't going to like we in this Twitter space are not the average user. Like we're in a Twitter space listening to the developers speak. We're talking about like how to go into Discord and get support and stuff like that. But ideally the average user won't have to do any of that, right? Like that has to kind of be abstracted away behind simple interfaces and all of that. So yeah, great feedback. Definitely agree.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thanks, Chad. And I have a question for Chad B for this as well. Like, is there, because I know that, the core team is going to, like, kind of, phase out, like, from being like, and they don't want to have they don't want to be this central figure. And, as a ideal, like future, we're gonna have like a lot of this, the interfaces, and there's like the THORChain is like under the hood without knowing that it's the THORChain, and even like then it like communications like this might be like a little bit difficult. Maybe like to have like a built-in like the message broadcasting type of mechanism that can be useful for later, even like when the people don't need to communicate and the network itself like says like the blocks are not being produced or something.
Well, the network itself can't really do that because it's not. In order to make some sort of change in state, it needs to produce a block. If it's not able to produce a block, it won't be able to create a state of change to notify. I mean, there are alerts and monitors set up within the Discord that you can actually look, and we saw a bunch of alerts go up, early this morning. So it can't be happening within the network. It has to happen from the outside looking in, looking how long has it been since the last block was produced.
Right. So you could have, though, like the interface teams be looking at some kind of like alert system within Discord or some sort of dashboard. And maybe the interface could have some automated thing that like if network halt, like automatically display this message or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just that I brought, I think like, more than 10 or 20 of my friends who just held the Bitcoin for a long time to THORChain, and they all panicked today, like because they don't do like DeFi on daily basis, and they were like, okay, so like is this the greatest thing that you said? And like I don't know what's going on, and this, I'm like this is basically like a very very like simple fix, and it's software, and if as long as it's software, there is a fix. There is problems, and none of these are breaking. But like just trying to do my part and have the ones who don't listen to devs on a Friday to have a little bit of a peace of mind. That's all. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your feedback. And I also just went on app.thorswap.finance, and it did have a big banner that said that trading was disabled. Although I do think that trading is now re-enabled. It looks like I saw some announcements. So yes, we have one last question from JS.
Thanks, long-time listener, first-time caller. I was curious about the yield long-term. Yield creates sort of the financial foundation for swaps, synths, and THORFi. And so when I look at the THORChain.live visual dashboards, it looks like income and expenses for the protocol right now shows that a large portion of the expenses is due to block rewards. So let me know if I'm mistaken, but I believe most of the block rewards are currently subsidized by the Treasury. So my question is, what metric and threshold, like volume or number of transactions, should we be looking at or monitoring when thinking through when the reserve will flip and become cash flow positive, meaning the block rewards expenses will be outpaced by protocol income?
Yeah, that's a good question. You can think of it like Bitcoin is actually a good example of it, because Bitcoin to this day is still vast majority of the yield that you get as a miner comes from the block reward rather than the actual transaction fees that it's generating. That always won't be true. It's just Satoshi put that there to create economic incentive for people to mine day one. If he didn't do that, then nobody would have swapped, and no one would have mined, and the whole thing would have never worked at all. And so block rewards are generally used as a mechanism to incentivize kind of early movers, in a sense, over the short, but it should not be used as something to maintain the value of being an LP or mining a chain or whatever in the long term. And that's why, partially why at least Bitcoin doesn't have any new block rewards after a certain date, a certain block height. So, and THORChain is conceptually similar to this. And so, in the very kind of beginning of it, I think last time I looked was about half and half. About half the yield LPs were making / nodes was coming from block reward, and half of it's coming from swaps. And I think that naturally, as more swaps happen on the network, it's not so much a specific number that I would say we're looking to look for. It's more about, because the number is relative to how big those swaps are, relative to how deep the pools are. So we'll see what it is over the long term, but in the short, I don't expect this to change anytime soon. But I think if THORChain becomes the thing that I'm hoping it becomes, which is just the #1 cryptocurrency exchange on the entire planet, bar none, in terms of trade volume, then it'll make huge amount of yield for everybody.
There's also a couple clarifications there. First, it's the block rewards come from the reserve, not the Treasury. Second is that the node operators have complete control over the emission schedule, and every single block, the rewards decrease, which means that it decreases at a slower rate for every block. So while emissions are faster now, they slowly become slower and kind of asymptote, on the lower end of it towards like on a longer time frame. But nodes have complete control over the reserve emissions rate. So all it takes is a majority of nodes to vote a certain way to completely change the emissions from the reserve to LPs and also to nodes.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool.
Great question.
2:00. So I think that's it for today. But thank you everyone for coming on. Looks like trading is resumed, so we're back to business as usual. Getting ready for hard fork next week, Terra launch after that, and things are looking great for THORChain.
Yeah, such an exciting time. Just everything really coming into place. Thanks, Chad B, for the time, all the updates, for probably having an early morning, fixing a lot of this stuff that went down. And anyone still here like live, if you're hopped in late, these are recorded too. So just you can pop back to where the space was posted and catch the recording immediately. And they're also posted on the Runebase podcast permanently. And we do this every Friday, 12 Eastern. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.
Sweet.